Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I am your host, Vince Edwards, in my terrible chair tonight. You may know me from Sound Image Productions. I also have a couple closed roadie groups, one called Death by Loadout and another one called The Backstage Pass. Come and see us, check us out. With me tonight, I've been lucky enough to enlist my good friend and superhero, the one and only mix engineer to the stars, Winston Dama. How are you, sir?
I'm good, and thank you for that nice intro.
It's absolutely sincere. You know, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, because you know some of the things I do say when I mean it.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. Love you. I love that we got Diva Puss up on the head this evening. He's perfect
I put that
there.
on there actually a week or two ago.
No, not the Diva Puss hat, but he's on the thing in there.
Staff.
Yeah, that our good friend and Scotty Chavez, a guitarist for Short Fuse, made for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. Diva Puss, huge fan, you know this. So you're working with us this week. We're lucky enough to have you in the house. You're doing some of our trickier repairs and install things. You having fun over there?
Yeah, I've got some challenging projects going over there.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, when you're loading crossovers, it's not always as easy as it might seem or sound. Sometimes,
You know,
man.
If we were back in just the hardware days.
Yeah.
You know,
Different.
I could make that stuff work all day long, even if it didn't. You know?
Yeah, and I've actually, you're pretty MacGyver-y.
I am.
You know, there's if there's a piece of Scotch tape and a bubblegum wrapper around, you're gonna get it worked out. I've seen that happen, and yeah, there's just some things, man. And we were talking about it earlier. You know, that handshake thing. It's so critical in what we do nowadays.
Yeah, gosh.
And sometimes the technology just is like pushing back. Doesn't want to stand up.
I just had a thing actually a week ago. Actually, it was a gig I was telling you about before for Yosemite High, their night on the town, and they have their own console and whatnot. But in order to do that, you have to be able to be flexible and roam with an iPad. Well, the firmware was incompatible on their board with, I think it was their stage rack. It definitely wouldn't communicate with my iPad. So the next thing, instead of programming the console, I'm now doing firmware updates on their console, on their stage rack, and everything, trying to get everything to communicate. You know?
Well, that is a new thing that we didn't suffer so much in the plug-and-play days.
Right.
It wasn't really a thing. It was more like watch out for what was in front of you, because the speakers are so big you couldn't really see over the top.
Well, even the consoles.
Yeah,
you know?
right. You know, you have 6 guys to get them up on another case, so you could just use the damn thing. Big old console party.
Now, I've had a story actually. You know John Graves.
I do.
Okay, so John and I were out doing Eddie Money actually a long time ago.
You know, that's where my first big break was, Eddie Money.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jimmy Lyons.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he
right,
snatched
right.
me up. He liked a little punk rocker, have a little punk rocker drag around with him.
That's right.
You know, his guitar tuning dork.
Right. Well, we were down at a harbor. It was around Christmas time years ago, and I think I brought out a PM4000 for John on that particular show.
Yeah.
And
Capable board.
yeah, so we've got everything pretty much set up. We were going through sound checks and stuff, and then all of a sudden we smelled that notorious burned electronics smell.
Acrid smoke of burned
Yeah, you know what that
electronics.
smells like. There's no mistaking it.
Yeah.
So, and we're smelling it out at front of house. So, you know, John and I going looking at everything, you know, the racks and everything. It's like, where is that coming from? It was coming from the PM4000, and apparently it was in the
From the
master.
board itself.
Yeah.
Not the engine. No way.
No, but see, those boards, unlike today's boards, you know, if we'd lose a channel, you know, I could pull a channel from down at the other end, swap them out.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, the master section had gone out.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. This is like...
Bad day.
Yeah, pretty soon we're going to be live into a show, except that now we don't have
Probably
any
not, actually.
Now, I don't know
That's the way
what
it
we
sounds.
would do with a digital system, but what I ended up doing was literally just bypassing the master section and taking everything. Somehow I got it over to a matrix or group or something like that, and I just routed that out, and we just did the show that way. Nobody ever knew the difference.
Yeah, you know, and I'm not sure the kids now on the fly would know how to save the day that way. You know, there's we run a little different nowadays.
Yeah.
And the old MacGyver ways aren't as well taught and understood. People specialize so much now, and I think we generalized more.
Right.
Where we just try to do it all and be understanding of as much of it as possible, from right down from, you know, Tetris of the truck and cubing out the truck to to driving the truck to, doing the mons to tuning the guitars to settling up even.
Yeah, I've done that
getting
before.
paid. Like this is.
Yeah, walking around with $20,000 in
Yeah,
cash on me.
It was a different time. It was just we just
Kinda
rolled
scary.
so different. Yeah, well, no, maybe I can imagine if they tried to imagine it, it would freak them right out. But there's also no groupies. There's so many things. I hated groupies. Hi, honey, I love you, by the way. I miss you so bad. Oh my God, I'm gonna have the best weekend with my wife, my girl. I'm so crazy in love. I forgot to say hello to her on the way in. But so many things about our business has changed, and in some ways for the better. I mean, there used to be a lot of broken people in the game. Some of them chemically dependent.
Well, we got that,
and
but
so on and so forth. You just don't see it anymore.
all
At least I don't.
those 8-man lifts to get a console, because we didn't have easy tilts.
No. We had
back then,
Johnny
so-
and Timmy and Frankie.
Yeah, I mean, geez, and if you didn't have, 8 serious people, or you had somebody that, just let their hands ride the case up instead of, lifting. You could get a blown out back pretty easy.
Yeah. It's something that's still, when we're messing with the old school stuff, we have to staff it right because it's something we don't do frequently now.
Right.
You underestimate it, So if
Right.
you're going to do a H3000 or something, try to lift that up with 4 guys, it can be done, but everybody's going to be sick. I need like 3 days off.
Well, talking, weight and stuff, back in the day when I'd go to do an arena or something like that, I would typically roll in for an average large show, but with 2 trucks roughly weighing in at around 46,000 pounds each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, part of that was the truck, but
Yeah, but
the
it's-
bulk of it was actually all the gear that we had to, put up.
No, that was the whole part of, going digital and so on, and in many ways, in lighting as well.
Yep.
First of all, deal with the power concerns. We're dragging down a lot of power.
Oh, God, yes.
And
All those
power equals heat, equals cabling, it equals weight. I don't need to tell you. We've
I was going
lived
to say, think about the Par 64 with
Oh, my God.
1,000-watt lamp per
the
can.
old boxing lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming on the big meat racks. Yeah, I'm nostalgic in some ways for that,
Mm-hmm.
and other ways, my back's glad they're over or they're gone. It's not like we didn't replace it with some really heavy shit.
Now,
we're
things
sitting
are
in front of one of
definitely,
the
better now.
heaviest PAs on the planet, and it's because it does a lot of things. It's a very special PA, but I think there's probably close to 1,300 to 1,400 pounds per transportation cart here.
We were looking in 1, 2, 3, 4, 2.
Take plus the cart, how these
Yeah,
carts
those
are.
carts are heavy too.
Yeah, that's 300-pound cart. It was a penny.
8, 3. Yeah,
There's
you're
some-
probably close to 1,200.
Yeah, so it's not like we don't still pick up the heavy and do the
That's a fact.
Yeah, and drag down a ton of power. That's all they did was they took that power they saved in the light and they threw it into the LED, threw it into the video walls, and threw it into other, special effects.
Now,
and
if they
things.
could figure out how to lighten up feeder cable,
Yeah, you good luck with that. That's
I'd
never
like
gonna
that.
happen. Never gonna happen. Listen, man, I'm really glad you're here. I want to talk to you a couple things. I missed the great Bernie Broderick, no slight towards you, and our great Kyle Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
This show has been an evolution. We've come out of nowhere and just did it because of COVID, and we had all this extra time and all these cool friends
Right.
and curious about the stories. And unfortunately, a few people have passed on that were guests on the show. We have their memories forever. I like to think that goes for every audience, cast person that's been on the
Sure.
show, and that they'll be there and people can reach out and understand who Toby Francis was or people that are on tonight. These are important people.
Right.
I appreciate the audience. Trust me to bring on interesting people that be interesting to have spend an hour with and talk to.
Yep.
And so I want to thank people like yourself, Winston Dallin, the great Kyle Thomas for probably doing 50 plus shows with me. Bernie, I would say a similar amount, maybe more. I love me some Bernie Broderick. He's my brother from another mother.
Bernie's a great guy.
Absolutely. Can't not thank the amazing and wonderful Dave Stone, the owner and founder of Sound Image. The space I sit on, the things I use, that's because I got permission from the boss to do that. And that my immediate boss and overlord is George Edwards, the general manager of Sound Image, and I wanted to thank him too. I can't do this without my crew. And so the Octopus, Michael Brown, who's off doing a really interesting show for us right now that I'm sure he's having a lot of fun at.
Well,
is
it
gone.
was interesting. I went out there last year when he was doing it.
Yeah.
And they needed some gear.
Yeah.
And so ran out there, and yeah, it was.
Yeah, here it's a real kick in the pants. We
Colorful.
don't allude too much about what we do in here, or what we do out there, I guess is really what we should say. But, we get up to some stuff, as you know, guys, and the shops are all full of new gear, and we got hundreds of speakers. I mean, yeah,
we got a few projects going.
we're doing some things. We got big installs coming up, big tours going on. We got a band. I think I could speak to this one, okay? Tonight, this show will be pulled out of this space, and Michael Franti will load in tomorrow, and he'll do a big production rehearsal in here for about a week. We've been using this space more like that, so that will preclude me from having a show for a minute, which is absolutely as it should be. This show is something we do as on an aside, and when the space isn't being used in that way. If there's a second we can make this a profitable space, we do exactly that. It's the business after all. And so I just wanted to thank all the people that have helped me get this done. I've had a lot of fun with it. I plan to do some more stuff in the future. We've got some amazing guests and people that we have arrangements with coming up in the future. But of course, we're also going into the Mad Dog season. And for me, my work has always come first. I have a lot of responsibilities here, and I want to not have it be affected by extracurricular activities. As you know, I don't really do those. I hang with my chick.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I pretty much do my job and try to be good at it and throw this show in when I got the energy and the time to do it. That's it. That's my life right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
and that's as intentional as you can imagine. I couldn't have planned that more that way. So that's not an accident. So we'll be around, and we'll see you around, and we appreciate that you come and see us. But I think we've stayed along now, done our little housework here. I wanted to thank Zach Watkins. He's running the cameras and doing all the hard work back there tonight. We just sitting there talking to our friends and stuff, so it's super easy. But the guy behind the camera, the guy making us sound right, I hope, and doing, that's you, buddy.
Thanks, Zach.
He thumbs up to us, so I hope we're okay. All right, man, it's going to get tricky. We're going to talk to people. We've changed the set tonight. I think if you've noticed, we moved the French chairs over next to each other because we've got a couple really special guests have come in. I will admit that these are not just people that I respect highly because of their output and what they do, and I believe in what they do, but they're actually my friends as well, and I couldn't feel luckier to have them in the house. This is a band that it's a couple members of one of my favorite punk rock bands. I come from the punk rock roots and highly live in that space in my head. It's no matter what my clothes and whatever I've changed through 30 years since, I would say 1980, 1981, I've always had the punk rock credos and kind of ethos in my soul. That is what punk rock is in my mind. It's a way of living, a way of thinking. It's not just a look or a sound. It's all these things. And the people that represented from the deepest, coolest part of their soul that I got love for is my two guests this evening. Please help me welcome the one and only from Infirmities, Jayhawk, the lead vocalist and lyricist, and the wonderful Harvey Rebellion guitarist and true badass. I'm really great to see you guys. How are you guys doing, man? Thank you for being here this evening. Gentlemen, thank you for coming back. Jayhawk, I've had you on before, and it was a very good time, but I missed me some Harvey Rebellion. I'm not gonna lie, okay? You know, I'm close to you, baby. We do breakfast and all that stuff when we got time. Yeah. But Harvey's a little harder to get hands on, and I haven't seen you for about 5 years.
And I didn't realize it was that long, but yeah, it's been a while.
I think you had come up, last time we saw you, you guys had done a show, and I came out and saw you guys, and you guys destroyed it at, I don't know, it was somewhere in, it was either Santa Cruz or Monterey. It was one of those Deke things, and I think we got some great pictures. Me and Deke Slam got through into, I think it was the Planet Gemini, maybe. I think
you're right.
And we're slam dancing and like. I think you're right, yeah. So I'm like, but you guys killed it, and then I had to get up here to this thing, and we were building this place out, and you guys came up on your way to do something else, probably some show or something in one of your vans. And yeah, and so it's been a minute, but it's so great to see you guys. You gotta tell me how the band formed. First, again, I like to say, you guys put on, FYI, you get a chance to go see this band. They put on a hell of a great live show. And then to me, you know where I'm coming from. That's my biz, that's my bread and butter. I'd like to think I know the difference, and these guys really bring it. How did you guys come together as the Infirmity?
Sorry about
live
that.
show.
If it's for me, just tell them to call back. Yeah.
I'm switching that to off.
That's right.
born and raised there. However, I had this dream, this ambition to want to take it further, and I wanted to take it to Los Angeles every weekend. Everybody thought I was crazy because it's a lot of driving back and forth all the time, and people have lives, people have jobs, right? So I'd say about maybe a year and a half into it, I was pretty certain on Los Angeles, and I was going to go there every weekend, play shows every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday, and be back home during the week to take care of my daughter. And so basically, around that time, we started hitting LA, I met Harvey. So I'd say we'd only done, maybe 1 or 2 shows before we ended up meeting up, and the rest is history.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know the history went that long, Harv. How do you remember it?
Yeah. Well, I think there was. I was just looking for some music, and I was kind of frustrated at home, and really weird. This flyer came up on my feed, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna go to the show, but I went with a purpose. I was thinking I'm gonna get there, and I'm gonna just anyone that's in a band or part of a band, I want to meet. So when I got there, I started talking to people, and I go, "Are you in a band?" And they would say no. I was like, "Well, it's nice to meet you," and then I would move on because I was on a quest.
Yeah.
And through that is where I met Jayhawk, and I told him about what I was doing, what I wanted to do. And put some bands together, and basically that's how we met each other. Mm-hmm. And I saw the band Infirmities perform that night, and they were pretty incredible. And but I didn't know that I would be part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we initially met.
And so you were already playing guitar at this point?
Yeah. Yes, I was playing with a band that I started called Cause for Rebellion.
Yeah, good name.
Yeah.
Well, and as it relates to the name, I always throw the on the name. I'm just pulling this out. Just get it off the table. It's because it does, we had this talk at dinner, that it kind of does roll like that. But ideally, kind of like, see, I'm going to do it right here with the Subhumans. Because, but I know the Subhumans are called the Subhumans.
Yeah.
Not the Subhumans, but it kind of works.
It works.
And I've been calling them that since like the Day the Country Died album came out in 1981 or something like that.
It's very common we get called the Infirmities, just like the Ramones.
Yeah, but it's not the
But
Ramones.
if you look at the Ramones coverage, it just says Ramones.
Right.
There's no the on there, so it's a common thing. I tend to correct people here and there, but I know they don't mean to call us the Infirmities, just even though we are just one word, Infirmities. Well,
it does. It flows. We mentioned you mentioned the Metallica comparison. I said, but the Metallica doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Or the Anthrax, or the Slayer.
The Pantera. It doesn't do it. But somehow the Infirmities makes perfect sense. It just does. I'll ask you about styles and influences.
Right.
Being an entertainer, it's like Liberace or Prince. I know David Lee Roth. You might have not necessarily agreed with the approach or the choice they made, but they understood they were entertainers. They rolled in with a certain look that was clear they were coming to entertain that night. I know you have a cool ass mohawk that takes 5 hours to build.
I didn't do it tonight.
How important is the image in the style portion of the game? Is it still a thing? Is it something that we add up into the equation?
I think that, well, for me, I grew up in a house of music. I had a father who was a musician.
Yeah, same.
And my dad was in punk rock bands before I was even born. So, I mean, was punk rock approved at home? Yes, it was. When Dad found me listening to the Sex Pistols album in my room, he's like, awesome,
Like that's my boy.
Yeah, that's my boy. He listened to the good stuff. He actually dug out some cassette mixes that were in the garage of old punk rock, like from the New York Dolls and old school Ramones and stuff. So he kind of started to teach me about other bands. I grew up in a house where I was an MTV kid, coming home after school watching that stuff. But at the same time, I think I wanted something more than what was on MTV. And that's why I latched on to, like, you know, the Sex Pistols was the first punk rock band I heard, never mind the Bullocks.
Yeah.
And just the attack that Johnny Rotten had on the mic, that whole style, I don't know, it hooked me right in.
Yeah.
You know, I was 11 years old, and I remember thinking, everything I'm listening to right now, even though it's current and it's cool, it's not as cool as this. And I remember my best friend came over.
Get the girls.
Yeah, Chad Ruiz, he was my best friend at the time. We skateboarded together. He was sponsored by Vision. He gave me all his boards when he didn't want them. He's the one that brought over the Sex Pistols record. And the second he brought it over to show it to me, on the turntable, I traded like 10 cassettes for that one record. I said, you have to let me have this. I'm not trading it. I'm like, you have to. I'll give you all this. It was like a whole stack of cassettes for this one record. And I got him to trade it to me, and I was 11, but I was hooked. I was hooked right away. And after that, when my dad came home from work, he heard me playing it in the room and sat me on the bed, and he's like, all right, it's time for us to have a talk, you know. So.
Well, you know, that album is the Rare Punk Rock Document. That's a Malcolm McLaren production, so there's a lot of, that's kind of in a weird way if you think about it. Sex Pistols are kind of like the punk rock boy band.
Yeah.
They're a little bit of a creation. And at the same time, they really did it well. That album, we're talking 1977. Okay, so that album holds up in a way that many albums do not. Even some of the Clash's work doesn't work like that.
Right.
That album, and there's at least 6 extraordinary punk rock classics on that album. It's an extraordinary album. I remember the first time, you said that was your first one you dragged home.
Yeah.
Mine was probably DK's Fresh Fruit, and it came with a poster, right? But I didn't understand what Dead Kennedys meant. It just was a name to me. I didn't understand who the Kennedys were, that 2 of them had been shot. My mom did. And when that poster went up and she saw that name, it really deeply hurt her feelings. And I didn't understand, I didn't know why, you know. I think she said something about knowing exactly where she was when John F. Kennedy was shot, you know what I mean? Like, so, I think, but that was that thing that punk rock did really. It was kind of, turned up your parents a little bit. It kind of amplified the conversation in an interesting way. We were all a little pissed off at the Ronald Reagan era, what was going on. No, I certainly was. You know, DOA, I can't think of how many bands had some song with the word Ronnie something, you know, fucked up Ronnie or whatever it might be. So, I noticed you guys, I've watched you over your years. In punk rock, I was thinking that I have like a dumb question, like Harv, what's your favorite album? But you know, we were just sitting talking at the table, and in punk rock, like Fear the Record or Adolescent's first album. I mean, like there's so many extraordinary.
There is a lot.
Descendants, you know, Black Flag. We just can group Sex by the Circle Jerks.
You know, you're right in that, but you know, I think that there's certain albums, certain bands that really speak to you.
Yeah.
You know, like just as you guys were talking, I was remembering, kind of recalling a memory of when I first heard the Ramones. It was on the news.
Really?
They were reporting them on the news, and I was just like, dude, what is this?
Yeah.
I got to know this, right? And that's kind of the first thing that really pulled me in.
Yeah.
But as far as like in the early 80s, that's when I was really into the Southern California hardcore. I think that one of the bands that isn't from California or the United States that really spoke to me was Discharge. And the album Why. The album Why is the one that really got
Your
me.
favorite.
My favorite is actually Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing. Like Why is a great album, but they really took it to another level with Hear Nothing, See Nothing.
They did.
Sonically, there's few albums, even in the punk rock canon, that come even close to touching that. That album is singular. It stands by itself. It is. If you got a good enough system, that will move your organs around in a really great way.
You got it.
Yeah, you can't help but feel Discharge.
And that album Why really got me because it was just something in music that I just never heard before.
Yeah.
You know, it was just,
Stands by
and I was thinking, how do these guys put this together? And then someone actually recorded it, right?
Yeah.
And then sent it out. I was just blown away by by that.
The whole
alone.
process.
The whole process, right?
Yeah. And then back then we had these big albums, and you could like turn around, you could pull stuff
Right,
out and read
yes.
up about it, and you could like interact with it. You could send like a postcard off or a letter, and you might get a sticker bag or some shit,
Yeah.
It was super fun. So my question to you guys is, what is it like? For an example, you got shows coming up with the great DRI, TSOL, GBH, Death by Stereo, The Exploited. These, in punk rock terms, I'm going to explain this. I'm going to talk to the audience for a second. GBH is grave bodily harm, or MDC's Millions of Dead Cops, JFA is Jodie Foster's Army. These bands, DRI is Dirty Rotten Imbeciles. These bands in punk rock are like, to my more rock and roll, probably centered audience, are like saying like Deep Purple, Def Leppard, Motley Crue. These are in this genre. These are the big hitters. These are full-on rock stars. Although we're kind of anti the rock star thing. They are Fear. If we're talking about leaving, that's like we're talking about a legend. Like this is like
Right.
as big as you get. What's it like
Yeah.
going out and doing a show with it? The great HR and the Bad Brains. I mean,
Well, we've been a band for 11 years. I've sang in punk rock bands for 32 years. But the past 11 years are something that probably every punk rock kid dreams of. I don't think I ever thought we would be where we're at right now.
Sharing
And
the stage with these
it's
people.
very, I'm always humbled when I walk into a show like that. There's bands like DOA, or, we got to tour with MDC, Reagan Youth, HR, Bad Brains, all these people that you see and know, but then you get to know them on the road and they just become your friend. Sipping tea with HR every morning after we play a gig together for 8 days straight, you know what I mean? To where we're outside on Harvey's patio and we're praying together in the morning, talking about tonight's gig. I get to take HR to go have dinner that night. We watch some Bruce Lee movies together. I mean, it's kind of like, it feels almost unreal when you're doing it. It's almost like it feels natural and awesome, but it's also like, wow, I'm actually just watching Bruce Lee with HR.
So just so you know, that's like saying I'm watching Bruce Lee with David Bowie. In our game, to say I'm watching, I don't think the whole of my audience will truly understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
That to us is like saying, oh yeah, I got to hang out with Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath for 8 days and hear his thoughts and drink tea with him and go and break bread with him. HR is the Bad Brain singer, and some people would probably say one of the best live singers on the planet.
And I know Harvey remembers that
Yeah,
well.
when we went on tour with them, I was really blessed by the whole thing because I drove the whole way, and so the rule with those guys was HR had to sit in the front.
Yeah.
So I just sat with him, and we were chilling. But I think it's kind of like what Jayhawk is saying. It's kind of surreal on the outside, but when you get in it, it's just like really personal and very very human. It isn't anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But when you do step back, you're like, wow, dude, that's crazy. Because he stayed at my house for a while, HR.
Yeah.
And he was on our couch, and my wife was like, because my wife likes Bad Brains a lot, and she's
Amazing
like, I
band.
can't believe HR is like downstairs in our living room.
We grew up
right?
with the guy. We grew up with him. He taught the Beastie Boys how to be a live band.
Right,
You know?
yeah. Right.
Like, he's HR. He'd give like Ian McKay from Minor Threat, lessons on how to play bass. Like, like crazy weird history is
just woven through the whole thing, right?
through the HR lineage and the whole thing, the whole band braids. From Rick Ocasek and the Cars to this whole, it's extraordinary. He's extraordinary, next level extraordinary.
Absolutely.
But then you get to work with bands like international bands, really truly Cockney kick-ass bands like the Exploited and GBH. I mean, again, to me, this is fucking Exploited, man. This is Punk's Not Dead, Exploited. Waddy,
Right.
Barmy Army. I mean, come on.
Well, it's a very big deal. When Infirmities first started, we used to actually cover Punk's Not Dead at our
That's a
show. A
great
lot of
song.
people don't know that, but there's actually one live video clip from Planet Gemini from the first year the band began, and we're doing Punk's Not Dead live. It's actually still on our YouTube channel.
Ooh, I'm gonna check
And
that out.
definitely one of one of our big influences. I mean, I'm wearing the patch right here. There's
That's right.
Exploited right there. There's Waddy.
Yeah.
So, you know, definitely a band that I grew up with, was influenced by. You know, here we are 10 years later, and we're about to play a show with Waddy. So it's a very special moment for sure. It's very,
I remember seeing Exploited in LA. You know, I'm just going to these shows, man. I want to get as much as I can. So I'm traveling and I'm going to LA and I'm watching all these shows, and part of them were GBH, of course, was one of those bands that I saw.
Yeah.
MDC was another band that I saw, and then Subhumans. I almost said the Subhumans, but Subhumans was another band that we played with.
Yeah.
That I got to see early on, and we got to play with them. So it's just a real honor to do that.
Subhumans, just to pick somebody out of that crowd of Subhumans, GBH, Exploited, Discharge. The Day the Country Died, that album, first of all, the artwork on the cover is sick as hell. You as a graphics guy, you got to be able to appreciate
Absolutely.
that. But, you know, how many albums can you just put on and play it from beginning to end, and it almost gets better with every song. Like it's that Subhumans album is a real document to what you can do with four guys, some inspiration, a little anger, and some guitars, and some microphones, and just really hit the gas. I mean, it must be really special. I think it's got the punk rock. So tell me about that. So they bring it, and the punk rock bowling thing. This is a kind of a, what do they call it, the PRB tour? They kind of move around a little bit. It's just a large concern, right? I mean, this is a kind of a huge show. There's everybody from the Suicidal Tendencies to L7, the Damned. These are not small acts. I will say I quibble a little bit. You got Bad Religion up there. You guys are playing with. I mean, this is GBH. This is a who's who of punk rock. How the hell is Rancid at the top? I don't mean that. Listen, I have a relationship here with this, but what happened there? How's the Damned, a band that I'm not even hugely fond of, but I mean for tenure and been there first, done that first. The Damned are certainly that. Rancid, to me, I always thought of them as a kind of a post-party arrival, a little more Offspring-ish. And not to take anything from them, I don't mean to be that way, but I'm old school, the Bad Brains coming out, the Bad Brains should be right at the top there. It'd be like DOA or Fear, holds down that territory. They don't get buried in the middle of the lineup, it seems, not sure how those determinations are made. Do you guys have any insight on that?
Well, I mean, I definitely did.
Is it record sales, you think? They're doing it by record sales?
I'm not quite sure how that decision's made. I don't know if I'd want to be the one making those decisions when you got that many amazing bands in one location. But I will say that Rancid even headlines like Rebellion Festival in England. So they've obviously not just surpassed Las Vegas. They tend to headline a lot of big things on their own overseas. And I can say it probably is record sales, and I can say that the first time I saw Rancid, I saw them for $5. They opened for Sick of It All in San Diego at Soma Live. There, once again, with my best friend Chad. Shout out to Chad. He plays bass in Urethane, Steve Caballero's band now, and he still lives in San Diego.
No kidding.
And so shout out to you, Chad Ruiz. And
is Cab out of San Diego? I thought he was San Jose.
He moved from San Jose to Carlsbad now.
He's not doing the bar thing?
No, he's in San Diego.
No kidding. We had done something with him at that bar not that long ago with the Faction and the Adolescents or somebody, and I was super finally a shock early,
Yeah, no, he moved out there quite a couple years ago. I don't know how many years ago it's been, but he started a band called Urethane, and my best friend Chad happened to be the one recording them, and it turned out they needed a bass player, so they ended up joining the band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. But back to, I don't know what I was talking about before.
Oh, the Rancid thing.
The Rancid thing. I just want to say something about that. So for me, the first time I saw Rancid would be 1994. I saw them for $5. And they were opening for Sick of It All. They were on tour with Sick of It All. Like I said, I caught them in San Diego. What I remember is back then, the flyer would say Rancid featuring members of Operation Ivy.
Yeah.
And so you only connected with it for the previous band that two of the members were in, which is Tim and Matt.
Yeah.
And
Well, Tim's a hell of a writer too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's written for a lot of folks.
when I went to that show, the biggest thing I remember about that show is they came out, they did a couple songs. I'd never seen them before, never heard them. The attitude, the mohawks, the leather jackets, everything. But I remember somebody started booing them in the middle of their set. And it was because they kept wanting to hear Operation Ivy songs.
Yeah, not gonna work.
Yeah, and so finally,
Not gonna happen.
the guitarist,
This is punk rock.
Lars, gets on the mic, who's a big Motorhead fan. He gets on the mic and tells the guy, look, the door's right there. We already got your money. So, you know what? You can leave if you want. But we're just kind of tired of hearing you,
Yeah.
complaining and asking for stuff we're not going to do. And the guy didn't leave or whatever. He stayed there, stayed quiet after that. But it's the first time I saw Rancid, I liked the attitude that Lars had towards the crowd at that very moment. And I came back to Salinas telling people about the band. Now, they weren't big yet. They didn't have an album that would kind of catapult them to like the following year. The Let's Go tour is what I saw. But I was intrigued just by the style of it. I knew of Operation Ivy, and so it was kind of like when I did see them blow up the following year with an Out Come the Wolves album. That's really their biggest selling album. A lot of people compared it to The Clash when it came out.
Yeah.
Because it had a lot of, it had some of the same overtones as some of that stuff. And
They bring a great live show. We did a little thing with them and the Suicidals for a few shows that went through a little California tour thing, and my gal went and checked it out, because it was all of our gear, and actually it was one of that kind of famous moment when the bass player jumps up on the front of the speaker on the stage, but it's still got the transportation cart, and one foot hits the wheel and he smashes down and doesn't miss a beat.
yeah.
He smashes completely face forward, all caught on camera from behind.
Wow.
And gets right up and just never misses a beat and starts running back and forth across stage.
Nice.
But does a full frontal face plant.
I think even Harvey would have a story for Rancid, because when Infirmities began, there is some Rancid influence there. For me, they came out when I was in high school pretty much. But I had listened to a lot of other punk rock before them, like Dead Kennedys and all the stuff you mentioned. I was a big fan of that stuff, Descendants,
Rule.
Swinging Utters even. So basically when they came out, I think one of the reasons they stayed at the top level where they're at is they came out at a time where, you mentioned other bands. There's Offspring, there's Green Day, all these bands coming out is right after the Nirvana thing. But to me, they sort of brought forth some of the look and the style of the sound that came a little from a different part of punk rock, where didn't mean that they invented it,
Oh, absolutely.
but it meant that they were bringing something else out that wasn't quite out with the other bands, like the Offspring or Green Day, or those were more poppy.
Not
And
do
so,
it Blink 182. I hate to put them
Right.
in Green Day, because Green Day is an extraordinary band,
Right.
but they are a pop punk band.
yeah, so when Infirmity started our sound, the original bass player is Troy Salas, T-Rex, and he's from Salinas, and
He's
all
great.
all of the bass fills he would do, his favorite bass player was Rancid's bass player, Matt Freeman.
No kidding.
And so he was doing his best to emulate those scales.
Yeah.
So all of our first recordings, the bass playing's insane. People are like, what happened to that kid? Well, he just, he moved to San Francisco. He changed some of the music he was into. RKL was no longer his favorite band as he got older.
Yeah.
And he just kind of, we're still great friends. And actually we played together once or twice in 2020. That's the last time Troy came back to do a couple gigs. But the reality is that they did have a huge inspiration on some of the sound that we have. There's two songs that we wrote that when Troy was in the band that have huge bass skills and everything. And I actually told Harvey, because Harvey said the same thing as you. So when I met Harvey,
I'm right with you.
he was like, what's up with the Rancid band? What's up? So I told him, go see them live, because I don't want to try to explain it. So he did. You can go from there. So
Yeah, so when I started it with Infirmities, I'm similar to you. I'm kind of like that 80s hardcore.
Hardcore punk rock.
Yeah, that's just my thing,
80
right?
to 84.
So when I came into
Sweet.
Infirmities, I kind of brought that with me, but I realized that that isn't what Infirmities was. Infirmities was like a different sound. Like, you know, Jayhawk's understanding of Infirmities was different, and you know, it's hard to come into a band and just bring whatever you are. You have to assimilate a little bit to what they are and kind of adjust to that, and then from there, you know, bring your part in.
Put your flavor on.
Right, but not your whole. But you can't be the whole thing. So so that's one of the things. When I did see Rancid live, I started to basically hear the guitar tone.
Yeah.
You know, was one of the things that was big, and then some of the riffs and those kind of things, and so I started like, okay, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
I get it, and I started to bring
Very hooky.
that influence, and kind of mix it with stuff that I had to bring to the band.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where you get the sound now.
Wow.
Is that, yeah. Makes
sense. You know, I noticed. Well, who inspired you to play guitar, Harv?
Well, that's really an interesting question because I was thinking about this the other day. But I think I was big on blues. When I was a kid, blues was my thing. That was the first music that grabbed me.
Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
Buddy Guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Those guys rule.
And so around in the 70s, this guy comes up, Southern California, and I hear on the radio, FM radio, this guy named George Thorogood.
Yeah. He's badass.
And that slide, and I was like, man, who is this guy? You know, I mean, you know, I had albums of blues, but I didn't hear it on like mainstream radio. Right. And especially in a rock radio. And so once I heard that, I was like, yeah, no, that's the guy right there. Just is playing the old school style, but bring it into new, and the slide guitar.
Yeah.
You know, just that's what really inspired me the most.
Great live performer.
Yeah.
Really brings. I mean, we want to see a goddamn heated kick-ass show. I hate to say this, Ted Nugent. I'm not a fan in many ways, but man, can he bring the heat when he's on stage doing his thing, specifically doing his thing.
Yeah.
He's untouchable. Man, you know, you're a father, you're a husband, and I've always appreciated your approach to how serious you take that part of your life, that you include your family in all your efforts and things you pursue. You got the cutest little daughter in Ezra Sky. And through the years, I don't know how many times, either social media or the times that I've been lucky enough to see, and Daddy brings out Ezra Sky, and she's in her own little her outfit and doing her thing, and gets up there and goes toe to toe with you, singing the songs. I mean, at least a song a show, it seems like. Yeah. And I mean, and for punk rock, it's at first a little bit like, what's happening right now? Yeah. And then it is just the cutest, coolest thing ever. It's a brave and bad. Excuse me. Really, it's cool. I chose a better word.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's just wonderful and lovely. And how does that go with the crowd as a rule?
Well, you know, people don't probably understand the whole story, but I mean, I never knew if I'd ever be a father. I was 35 years old when my first child was born, my only child, which is my daughter. A little background on that, we were told that we might never be able to have children. So for 7 years, we kept trying and all that, but we didn't. We just kept it in prayer, and we left it up to God. So who cares what the doctors say? You know, I mean, if God wants us to have a child, then we will. And the miracle child was born, which is my daughter. Of course, Daddy was always doing punk rock since she was born, and I think I had a mohawk when she was born. I'm pretty sure I did. So, I mean, I remember when she was about 2 years old, I used to carry her on one arm like this, and then I'd have the microphone like this. But she was still small enough where I'd carry her with one arm. And I'd bring her up on stage, and she wasn't singing with me, but she was so happy to be up there, and she just loved being in front of the crowd, even at 2.
Yeah, wow.
And I could just see how comfortable she was.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you'd go back and look at the picture and like, oh my gosh, she looks like she's at Disneyland, but she's just
like a natural.
yeah, just naturally
Yeah.
liked it. You know, she
Yeah.
loved it since she was really small. Her first circle pit was actually with Deacon.
Yeah.
Deacon took her around Casa Sereno while we played in my hometown of Salinas, California, and there was some other little kids there, and Deacon made sure that he made a nice, safe little pit for her.
Is that
So,
that place
you know,
off of Salinas? Is that Salinas Street?
Yeah, it's a pizzeria.
Yeah, right? And
It's
kind of
still
right
there.
before it hooks around like that?
Yep.
I think I was at that thing, dude.
You were.
Yeah.
You were there.
I think this is years ago, right?
Yeah, you
I
came
think
with
I-
Deacon.
Yeah, I think.
Harvey was on guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you mentioned it, I remember that.
You were
now.
there. Yeah. He brought you with him, and so
Yeah.
basically, she grew up around it. Never in a million years, though, did I ever think one day she's going to be singing with you in England, and I didn't see that at all coming for some reason. Even as her father, spending time with her every day, she'd listen to the Infirmities music in the car. See, I even said in the car, and she's listening to our music, right?
Yeah.
Her favorite song since she was a baby was World of Sin.
No kidding.
I'd put it on, and I could show you a baby video where she's just, as soon as it comes on, like her eyes light up and she's smiling.
Yeah.
Like there were certain things about it. So
She did the daddy moves at all? She hand up?
she did actually. She did. When she was real little, she would follow me around the stage. Harvey remembers. At the Fox Theater, her mic wasn't plugged in.
Yeah.
But she would run around with the mic and copy my moves behind me.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And my wife would catch it on video, and I didn't even know she was doing it until I got home.
Yeah, that's
And I watched the
awesome.
video. I'm like, "Whoa, she's copying me! Look, she's
Yeah,
doing."
That's
So
very cute.
it was very cute, and people loved it. It was always spontaneous, never planned.
Yeah,
Even in England, it wasn't planned that she would sing with me.
yeah.
We
That
get
was
there, and she's
really
like,
special.
"Daddy, I want to sing with you." And I remember telling her, "All right, let's do it." You know, I told the sound man, "Turn her up. I don't know what's going to happen." And she ends up nailing like 90% of the set. She knew all the words, and it blew me away because I didn't even know she knew all the words.
Yeah. She's
So
paying
that's how
attention.
spontaneous it was.
Yeah.
You know, and kids are so young, they're like, you know, they said like sponge, they
That's right.
they just learn it. She was hearing the music in the car, but when she's humming along, you never think she's learned all your lyrics.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it until we got to England, and she did it right in front of me. And as a father, I was trying not to lose focus, because like I'm singing to the crowd, but I'm looking to my left, and she's got one leg up on this mic box right here, and she's just killing it. I'm like, how do I not pay attention to that right now? I have to like look at you guys, you know. And it's still the best, most incredible show I've ever done in my life was that one show with my daughter.
Yeah.
Because it was a big surprise to me. Mom was in the front filming with her phone.
Yeah.
And that's what's on YouTube now. Anyone can still watch that performance.
Yeah, it's very special. I highly recommend it. You mentioned your faith. Now, again, you guys are a little bit outliers. And you know, I played down and dirty. I'm old school atheist. I'm rough and tumble. People tend to say maybe a little rough and a little raspy around the edges. But I've always respected this about you. So I kind of put it in the same league as my understanding when I first came to grips with the Bad Brains.
Sure.
And understanding where they were coming from.
Right.
And the Bad Brains are not coming from where most people think they are coming from. I mean, there's some certain anger in their game for sure, but there's also a lot of love and faith in their game. Mm-hmm. And you guys bring that to the table, but you do it in a way that's super powerful. I never felt like I was being bowled over by your perspective. I felt like you were offering it up in a way very digestible. But I know it's important to you, your faith and your music. Can you talk to me about how you get it in there, but also how your delivery is in a way it's very very receptive to it. Again, you're one of my favorite punk rock bands. And
Well, something you said, you know, the atheist. I mean, we have people that are complete Satanists that love Infirmities. So, I mean, and the real ones too, not like, you know, the ones
yeah,
that
but
just
to me, that's
wear-
just the
I mean,
other side of the coin
yeah,
of being
but that's what
a
I'm
super
saying.
Jesus-y guy.
But that's what I'm
It's
saying.
just,
So, but you brought up a good, valid point. One thing about the music is, you know, to me, music is music. If it hooks you in, it hooks you in. It doesn't really matter what they're talking about necessarily. It does matter, but if a band is good and the music's good and it's catchy, you're gonna like it regardless. It just happens, right?
Yeah.
There's probably something we've heard on the radio that we find annoying, but when we first hear it at the very second, it ends up being catchy and it sticks in our
Toxic
in our
by
mind.
Britney Spears. Can't help it. It's a fucking great song.
Yeah.
Hate me
Yeah.
for it. It's a
Yeah.
good song, but in somewhere inside me, I feel like I'm getting dirty by it. But it's
Yeah,
good. You know? Like,
So Infirmities is kind of like that. I mean, we came out of nowhere. We start playing all these backyards in South Central, Compton, Watts. You know, there's this band from Salinas playing in LA every weekend, mainly in backyards because I wanted to start from the ground up. I wanted to start from the bottom. It meant a lot to me if I'm going to come to Los Angeles, I'm going to meet them right where they're at, and I want to be in the alleys with the punk rock kids that are in high school,
yeah.
in the backyards where there's no rules. So when Infirmities began, it was all about bringing that Salinas street punk to the table, to Los Angeles, our own brand of it, the hometown sound, but bringing it raw and in your face, not holding back. I knew enough to know that I had to bring it that way. And we started in the backyards. We ended up, from there, started going and playing in the clubs. You know, eventually, everything else, right? Sunset Strip, Las Vegas, whatever. But it all starts at the bottom. You have to start in the backyard. You have to start in the house party. You have to start at the bottom. I mean, really, the youngsters are the ones that talk about your band.
Yeah.
You know, and you need that audience if you're going to build from it, because they're going to tell your friends, their friends about you. So, back to what you're saying, I guarantee you, 95% of those kids, maybe 100%, did not know what we're singing about.
Yeah.
It's just really fast.
Yeah.
It's raw. You got in the pit. You loved it.
Yeah.
And at the closing statement to every song, the closing statement to every concert, the very last thing I say.
Yeah.
Is the real like thinker. So I have a closing line that I say every single night for the past 11 years. So every night of when Infirmities ends, I say thank you very much. We are Infirmities. We love you, and Jesus Christ loves you too. And then I throw the microphone in the air about 6 feet up high, lands on the ground, and I land on my knees. Now when I say that, you don't even know we were talking about that, probably.
No.
Until I say that.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. Those 30 minutes, you've already been in the pit nonstop. And when I say it after those 30 minutes, I've already earned your respect. You're already a fan because you already love the music. So my approach was always that.
More receptive to the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the music's good.
Yeah.
It's harder to go back after the fact and be like, no, I don't like that band because.
Well, they said some God
know.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been
roll like that.
times where we played and the audience did not want to participate. They
Yeah.
would step back
Oh, yeah.
and they were like, all right, it's these guys.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the things that is interesting is that, you know, there's a misconception because I think that, you know, I like there's this saying in the 12-step community that it says that it's about attraction, not promotion.
Yeah.
It's about getting to know who we are, and we're just regular guys. You know,
Oh, yeah.
we love the Lord, and we're that's our faith, and that's what we base our lives upon, and that's what the music is about. But a lot of people have really embraced us, even in the backyards. Mm-hmm. You know, they've come to be our friends. We've been able to pray for some of them. You know, when they had troubles, when they were going through things, and we just showed up and we're there, and then they get it, right?
Yeah.
They get, oh, these guys are just like us.
Yeah.
You know, there's no difference in it, and so that's one of the things that that keeps us going.
Yeah, I would have a kid come up to me, and you know, in a backyard show, there's drugs everywhere, just like there was drugs back in the day in house shows or whatever, house parties. Same thing in a backyard. There's no rules.
Yeah, very, very normal.
So people are doing lines of cocaine on top of an amplifier. I mean, it's normal. That's normal, right?
Yeah.
So basically, in a backyard, a kid will come up to me and be like, I had one kid I'll never forget. He's like, I don't get you. You're so punk rock, but you're like into God and I don't understand. And he was pretty drunk at the time. I said, it's pretty simple. I go, look, I'm you, okay? I'm you. I didn't grow up with church in my life. I didn't grow up with God in my life. My parents didn't go to church. We prayed at the dinner table, but that was about it. But we didn't really, I didn't grow up with it. I'm a punk rock kid just like you.
Yeah.
I was at the shows getting drunk just like you.
Certainly was.
I did everything you're doing right this second. The difference is, when I was about 25 years old, after waking up passed out, not knowing where I was for about 14, 15 years, being in punk bands that long, singing about same stuff every punk band mostly sings about.
Yeah.
You know, anti-government, anti-establishment, anti-rules.
Yeah.
Teenage angst, being mad all those years about whatever reasons, and writing a song about it. I go, you know, but you gotta understand, I did that for 15 years. I go, so it's really simple, I'm you. But what changed me was, you know, I went through a really hard time. I almost got divorced. I just got married, and you would never know that when you see pictures of me and my wife.
No, you guys seem like the happiest couple ever.
You would never know that. But part of what brought that glue back to the tables is there was a time when she walked out of the marriage, and it was right after we'd been married for 2 years. After she said, "I'll completely support your dream and your passion." As we know, sometimes when you get married, it changes because now you're living whatever they agreed to. It's different once you live together and you have to live through it, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't in a band that was about faith back then. I was still going on the road with Total Chaos, getting drunk in the back of the van. In my own punk band, at the time was called Los Vigilantes. We were from Salina Street Punk, but the opposite. Not about faith, about the normal punk rock thing, right? So I lived all that already. so when I meet the kid, I'm like, it's really simple. I'm you. But here's what happened to me. And that, for me, faith is something that helped me to move forward. Because I had hit a brick wall with punk rock to where after the partying and the drinking and then the wife left me and then the whole, I had to choose something different because I knew that my way wasn't working.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'd hit a brick wall.
Well, I got you exactly where you were.
And that's exactly where I was. So where God met me in my life is at a pivotal point in my marriage. And we were separated for a whole year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't imagine. And I wouldn't have imagined that because
No.
what I loosely know about your relationship is it's a very tight relationship, very close and loving relationship.
Yeah.
And however you got there, good for you and the family and then the scene. You know, you guys are an asset to the scene. We're running long on this, and I'm gonna take us over a couple minutes here because we got a couple business things to do. But let's move forward. But yeah, love to the family, and I've been watching you kind of from a distance and close up a couple times for God, I want to say 7-8 years now, and probably maybe longer. And I've always kind of been impressed in the way you approach the family thing and the husband and the father part of your world. You know, these are important jobs and not to be done, indelicately. And so, you know, hats off to you. I want to just really quickly switch over to Sam. You got a dad who's kind of a badass. I mean, let's just put it out there. He's a musical. He's very, very talented. He's got an extraordinary band, the Chicano All-Stars. They're kind of legendary in their own lane. You know, to me, I think a Tower of Power or something like that lane.
Yeah.
You know, like just what was it like coming up with a musical family? Did it, influence you the way that I imagine?
Well, I guess to me it was normal to have a dad that was in a band that was always playing shows, and he worked at a music store, so he was meeting musicians every day like Stevie Wonder and Al Hendricks. Jimi Hendrix's dad would spend the night at our house, and the drummer from Oingo Boingo would spend the night at our house, Vato Hernandez. And so all these people I'm meeting as a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And dad would bring them home from the music store whenever they would do like drum things. What do you call that? Like a drum off or a, where they come and they have the new drums.
We call that
come
a
out.
drum circle.
Yeah, like something like that. So I was meeting a lot of people growing up because my dad was always around musicians. Going back to when I got married, I thought it was normal for a dad like myself to be playing in bands and out doing my
Yeah,
thing.
because that was
And
normal to you.
Mom always held down the fort at home. She always was a paralegal, so she worked for attorneys. She started as a secretary, worked her way up, and Mom just kind of held it all together at home somehow.
Well,
that wasn't easy.
Yeah, no doubt.
But going back to your question, my father, there's 4 generations of music in my family, starting with his, not his father, but before his father. That would be my great grandfather. Was he did like an orchestra, a conductor type.
Big band.
Yeah. So he did that, and then you have my father, and then you have me, then you have my daughter. So then you have 4 generations, right?
Yeah.
So
It's in the blood vein.
it's in the blood.
DNA,
Art
yeah.
and music is
Yeah.
what's in the blood. And but yeah, it's definitely inspiring. I mean, I grew up around it, always seeing my dad performing.
You remember you were here, I think it was, we had Def Leppard and we had like Bentmont Trench in here from Tom Petty and all these heads. You remember we were doing a benefit a few years ago and you were here visiting. I think that's what it was. Or it was something, but we were hanging with Rick Allen, dear friend of the show. And I think I made a promise to you about something. I don't know why I do that, but we talked about this earlier, and we're both guys that fulfilled our promises. And the only thing I could think of when I was digging through my collection, which is pretty extensive, why I would have said that I would give this to you is because I think I was rehousing it to a place where it would be cared for in a careful way. And I mean that, my hair is going up on my arms right now. I mean that very sincerely. I'm giving you something that I've had for 40 years in my collection that is priceless in my mind. And there may be 6 of them on the planet. And I know when I give this to you that it will be taken care of in a good way. So I want to honor my promise to you. I told you I had this very rare flyer from the Black Flag DOA descendants from Ukrainian Culture Hall. I want to say 1981 LA. That is a punk rock flyer, and I've got a badge from, but that is one of my favorites that I even had framed.
You can zoom in on that.
Very, very rare. I'm not sure his technology is up for that, but if you can, it is a very, very rare piece of punk rock memorabilia.
Thank
And
you
I
so
feel
much,
like
man.
it sitting, getting dust over there made me feel ashamed of myself, and that I know that would go to a good home. So that is my gift to you,
I
my
know you
friend.
appreciate this.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's amazing.
Harv, I got it. Harv, you're getting the door prize with a hoodie today, okay, buddy?
All right, that's great.
Before
yeah.
you leave.
Well, thank you.
I don't have an extra.
I actually brought something for you too.
You're sweet that way. I had a feeling you would do something kind like that.
So, a lot of people you might not know at home, but the logo that everybody knows of Vince's mug here, I'm actually the guy who drew it.
That's right.
And this is the actual drawing that became
Our
logo
brand,
that
which is
everybody
right here in the
knows.
front of the
Yeah,
desk
so-
or on these cards.
And I created that logo.
That's right.
So, but this is actually the drawing before it went
And
into
on
the
the hoodie.
computer. And you can see how he's holding it up over there.
Yeah.
So I want to gift this to you. It says, to Vince, the face only a mother could love.
Not wrong. And I'm really lucky that my dad. This is perfect. You take it. My dear good friend Bernie Broderick had made these geometric shapes that was kind of in the shape of my face and the long beard, like a triangle, upside down triangle. You remember?
Yeah.
I was like, it's super cool, Bern, but maybe we could do some more. I've got this really. Thank you, my friend. I will cherish this. I've got
Thank
this
you.
really
Thank
good
you for
friend
your gift as
that
well.
goes by Mr. Hat, who's the singer for the Infirmities, who's a really great graphic designer. I've seen a bunch of your flyers and your album work. And so let's just quickly talk about Mr. Hat and the graphic design work you've done.
Sure.
I know that currently you're touring as Mr. Hat Meet and Greets.
Correct.
And that you get out there, and this is a kind of a slightly a different lane in your world. I don't know. It's kind of, we talked about the personas,
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, and it's kind of I know you get mistaken for like a suit guy. I think
Sometimes.
because you can get pretty slick in your and some of the outfits you get on.
Well, so one of my biggest influences as far as the aesthetic of the persona of Mr. Hat is I've always been a huge Charlie Chaplin fan. I love the fact that he can make everybody laugh, without having to use sound. All you had was background music and stuff.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Silent film era. I love old black and whites with like Humphrey Bogart. I love Twilight Zones. I love Outer Limits. I grew up watching Outer Limits with Dad. there's a certain aesthetic to the film noir, the old school sci-fi era.
Hammer films.
I grew up reading comic books that Dad had around the house, all the Silver Age Marvel stuff, you know, Stan Lee, Amazing Spider-Man. So to me, growing up around that, besides the music, I also have the art side. So when I was like in second grade, I used to make drawings in class, and I would sell them during recess for 50 cents, and my teacher would let me put them on the wall. And so I started making money with my art really young. And by the time I got to fourth grade, my teachers had a parent-teacher conference with my parents, and they said, you know, he's kind of slow in other areas, like, you know, like in math, or like when we call on him and it's time to, you know, whatever, he's slow in certain areas, but he draws all over his homework. He likes to draw like little cartoons and stuff, and there's kids in the class buying his drawings. So we'd like to recommend your son for art school. And so from Salinas, my parents moved all the way to San Diego for me to go to a school called FAME. It stood for Fine Arts Magnet Education.
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
And it was one of the first year-round schools. Back then they called that a magnet school. And I went there in fourth grade, fifth grade, and my dad went on to move over there and create his first San Diego reggae band called Catch a Beat, who actually won an award while we were there as one of the best bands in San Diego. He was on a compilation on vinyl when I was a kid for one of the best bands in San Diego. And so anyways, like, I grew up doing a lot of artwork. Right out of high school, you know, when the counselor sits you down, what do you want to do with your life? I go, I don't know. What do you like doing? I just love doing art and music. It's like, do you know about graphic design? I go, what's that? You get paid to do artwork on computers. And I didn't even know what it was, but it sounded cool. So right out of high school, I went right into graphic design. I went to Hartnell College. I got all the courses I needed, Photoshop, Adobe stuff. And from there, I went on to work for like NBC. I worked for KSBW, Channel 8. I was a cameraman for the news.
It's NBC.
Yeah, filming Dan Green and all that stuff. And so, but I was also creating the graphics for the news. So the little square you see next to the anchor.
Yeah.
I was the guy making all 60 squares right before it went on at 5 and 11.
Wow.
So I was in a little room. Someone just got shot. Okay, murder slide. It's like, you know, I have to come up with stuff really fast.
Yeah.
But it made me learn how to create graphics at a fast pace. I was still in college doing it, and then I had 2 jobs and only had a bicycle. So I would ride my bike from one job to the other. The other one, I worked at the Salinas Californian.
The newspaper.
And the local newspaper, and I was creating all the entertainment section stuff, like the Artichoke Festival, the Steinbeck Festival, the rodeo. They would give me a couple pictures, like, make something. And that would become the big, whatever, like the full page. Like a newspaper, you'd open it up and you had the whole graphic in the middle.
Sure.
So I would get to do that once a week. Every Thursday, I designed the entertainment section.
Very cool.
So, and I'm still in college, but I'm doing all this stuff because I wanted to see if I even liked doing it in the real world. Turned out I loved it in the real world. So now it wasn't just a love for music. I was starting to really dig graphic design and doing it as a career. So then I went on to get my degree in graphic design in Sunnyvale at Brooks College. And I came back to my hometown and I started my own business. I was 26 when I started my business, and then I had my first office downtown when I was 29. And I had that office there for about 10 years.
Yeah, I know you've done some amazing stuff, some really great images and very cool artwork. And thank you for, I love art design. This image right here has been all around the world. All around the world. My roadie friends, the people that have been guests on the show have walked out of here with hoodies and t-shirts and stickers and different weird things. We've got pens and just on and on. We got literally playing cards. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of these things I didn't make. My audience sends me 10 packs of playing cards with my face on the page. So you hand them out, you know. Well, but this image is literally, I've seen this on stages in Japan and Nova Scotia, all over Europe, awesome. Every friggin' place in Europe, almost all of South America.
Don't forget El Centro.
He's out there wearing it. So people are wearing your brand. And your image that you produce have literally probably been in 50 or 60 countries.
Yeah.
And that's fun. It's just a weird kind of,
For what you're saying, the persona, just like Bowie had different personas,
Yeah.
all these people do. Madonna, all these different people do, right?
that's right.
As an artist, we have different personas. Creating the Mr. Hat thing was a friend who, I always love to wear hats. When I don't have my mohawk up, I'm lazy. I don't comb my hair, and I love to wear hats. I've always worn hats.
Yeah.
Ever since college, I wear hats. So my friend said, you're going to be Jason the Hat, because I always called him Joey the Jazz. He liked listening to jazz music. Jason the Hat, later, when I got married, turned into Mr. Hat. So that's where the Mr. Hat thing comes from. People like, do you sell hats? No, I don't. It's just a nickname because I love hats.
Yeah.
I own about 80 hats. If you were to come into my closet, you'd have every different style, every different color of hat, from
Fedoras
like a bowler,
and-
fedoras,
yeah,
all kinds of
yeah,
hats.
yeah. You're known for your
casual
hats.
ones, leather ones, just all kinds of stuff. Even the train conductor style ones,
Yeah.
paperboy style. I've got all these different ones, and I mix and match them with different clothing. For business, I am Mr. Hat.
Yeah.
Cool.
know.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Maybe you guys, maybe you know, don't know,
Yeah.
but I play guitar, which I'm here for Infirmities, and very proud of it. But I'm also a pastor for a church called Rebellion Church in Lake Elsinore.
I've seen your
And, yes,
your
and
posts on that.
we are on YouTube if anyone's interested in, wanting to check it out, see what it's about. And so it's something that that is part of what connects us together, me and Jason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what brought us together. And so, but during the times that I've played with Infirmities, I was also, my other part of my life was preparing myself for that. So that's one of the things that a lot of people might not know
Yeah.
about that. So
Well, and where can they find you on YouTube?
we're a Rebellion Church on YouTube, and every Sunday we go on live. We do a live thing,
Very cool.
which is kind of a little nerve-wracking, as you know.
Yeah.
But we go on live every Sunday at 10 o'clock.
You guys have a praise band?
We
se?
well, we usually have one guy that plays guitar,
Right.
And right now, currently, I'm taking over the praise thing, and so yeah.
what
it's
kind
a
of
lot.
what
It's
kind of
a-
music in your church? I'm just kind of curious because of your background and
Well,
your
yeah.
current thing.
So I would like to develop something that is a little more raw, because when I became a Christian, one of the things I didn't like was the music.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, when they're like, oh wait, these guys are Christian and they play punk rock, it's got to be like,
Winger.
Neck watered
yeah,
down,
like
or, yeah,
Blink 182 or something,
yeah.
But they don't associate it that it could be hard.
Or a striper or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
And so that's one of the things that I never liked about that, about church music. I always felt that if you were very passionate about something and you were dedicated to it, that the music had to be a little aggressive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just has to be aggressive. So that's something that I'm developing right now. And like the band that I said earlier that I was in before I met Jason, Cause for Rebellion, we were actually a Christian band, and we're on Spotify, but our music is not preachy. It's nothing like that. It's really about everyday life and how we deal with it.
Right.
Yeah, good way to
Right.
sum that up. That's how I'd kind of sum it up too, what I've taken from it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's some life lesson stuff in there. But again, you're not banging anybody over the head with it. Tell me what's coming up for you guys next. If somebody could do, I know you got at least 3 really killer shows. You guys are always gigging. But can you tell us in a kind of a quick rundown? We're super past time here. People
Right.
are well turned off by now. But this is important. Where can they see you next? And with who?
So next week we're going to be at Punk Rock Bowling in Las Vegas.
A huge thing.
So many bands on that thing, it's too many to name. But the show that we're actually performing at is the very last big after party show of the entire festival. And so that's on the Monday because everyone's off on Monday. and we're playing with TSOL and Punk Rock Karaoke, which if people at home don't know what that is the guitar player from Circle Jerks, Greg Hedson,
And Bad
and
Religion.
Stan Lee from the Dickies, the drummer from Pennywise, and I remember they all are from other bands that people know. And what it is, they get people from the crowd to come sing on stage, and they're the backing band.
So you go up there and say,
You
okay,
can go up
play
there and
Holiday in
yeah, they
Cambodia,
can sing
and
Fear,
then try to,
Dead Kennedys, they can play
yeah.
anything.
Right.
let's have a war or
Yeah.
something like that by Fear, something cool.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's a sold-out show, so it should be a lot of fun.
And Spiders on there.
Spider's on there
Spider.
also. That's
No
right.
kidding.
Spider's on there, and we play with them in LA as well. And right after Punk Rock Bowling on the Monday, that same week on Friday, we're playing with the Exploited in Santa Cruz at the Vets Hall. For those of you that don't know, the Exploited have never been to Santa Cruz ever,
Hey,
like in
rip.
history. So tickets are going fast. It's very historical for the city to have Waddy perform there. We're playing there with Total Chaos.
Big John still in the band.
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is Waddy basically exploited?
basically, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which venue are you guys playing?
The
Santa Cruz Vets Hall.
Vet Hall.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that's
and
kind of a
then,
legendary
so
spot
right
up
after
there.
that, we're headed to the following week. Right after the Exploited, we're playing a show with Ignite and Death by Stereo. That's going to be in Palmdale. And then after that, we're headlining a show in Modesto. And then we move on to another big festival called Crash Fest in Portland, Oregon. Where we'll be playing with, let's see, we got, who's on that thing? We got GBH, we got DRI. Gosh, there's a lot of bands on that. Blank 77 is on that.
Yeah.
Badass.
Wow.
It's something we play every year is Crash Fest.
Yeah, that'd be
and
a lot
it
of
used
fun.
to be here in the Bay Area. It used to be at the Oakland Metro.
Yeah.
But the guy who started Crash Fest moved to Portland, Oregon, so now it's in Portland.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And one
It's a lot
last
of
thing.
fun.
Yeah.
Is that, I'm
It's a
sorry.
lot of fun.
Oh no, you guys got a good
Yeah.
lineup coming. It's summer. It's perfect time to get out there with the people and let them hear your sound, let them hear your message. And let's brace through this pretty quickly. But I know you've been working on this documentary, Just a Kid from Salinas. You changed some directors around to get to a place that you, I think, want to be better understood. I'm not exactly sure. It's Leo. Is it Leo Partable?
Leo Partable.
He's worked with George Romero, did the horror classic Night of the Living Dead. I mean, that's a pretty friggin', I guess his brother's a Johnny Bravo guy. I mean, this is a pretty credentialed guy.
Yeah, his brother's Van Partible. He created Johnny Bravo. Everybody knows the Cartoon Network show
Johnny Bravo's a
Bravo.
crack
It's
up.
pretty famous. It's international now. It's even bigger overseas, Johnny Bravo.
Johnny is, yeah. He's got a very specific sense of humor.
So
Yeah.
that was his brother that created that. But Leo's worked with, he did interviews with Stan Lee, who's the creator of Marvel Comics. Everybody knows that, but just in case. He's worked with a lot of different people in the industry, friends with the people that put the movie together for Black Panther. He works directly, he's worked in Hollywood. He's worked alongside a lot of famous
Hugely
people.
credentialed guy. Tell me what the thing's
Yeah.
about and when can we get our hands on it?
So we've been working on the documentary for at least 3 years now. And what happened was the director I had, he mainly specializes in animation, not so much directing film. So he said, I think it's time for me to pass this off to somebody who mainly does directing. I had always been talking to Leo. Leo's working on his own movie, which will be out soon. There's a rock and roll film that I'm actually have a couple cameos in that movie as well. But we were already working together on his film when it just seemed to make more sense that he would direct the documentary and work with me on this film. Plus, Leo's actually originally from Salinas. His family's from Salinas, being that the movie's called Just a Kid from Salinas. Now you have the director and myself are both from there, so it just adds to the whole,
You got an
thing.
estimated release date?
We're going to be releasing a trailer by the end of this summer.
All right.
So you guys will see a trailer at least.
We'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what a treat it was to have you both in the shop.
Yeah.
I get to see you with some frequency. I never get to see you. You live in the Inland Empire. You're far
Yeah,
away.
it's
and
far away.
It was really hard. I'm big fan of Jayhawk. He's a dear friend, but I missed you, buddy, and it's so good to see you. It's such a
Yeah, well, I was excited to know that I was going to come up and see you again and to be on your show.
Yeah.
It's been
Very
an absolute
exciting.
honor. Thank you so much for the effort. Thank you for coming on, sharing your experiences and your stories with my audience, and coming with Jayhawk. And we're very much looking forward. I think I may rumble down to the exploited thing. I'll shoulder tap my way in there somehow. Just trust me.
You'll get it.
That would be great to have you.
Not even a question. You're in, Vince. But you got to bring your brother with you, maybe.
Yeah. He don't roll like that. But I'm serious. It'd be Guns N' Roses we'd be doing, and then he would probably not go out. He
Can't get the lieutenant.
No, I think that's the general. Yeah,
general
whatever the
and
hell
lieutenant.
is. Yeah,
That's what I remember.
but absolute treat. Thank you guys for coming and doing the show. I appreciate
you.
it. And
Thank you
can't
for
wait
having
to-
us.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
If you guys get a chance, go out and see the Infirmities. Man, because really an extraordinary musical experience and one of the best live bands I've ever seen, and I have seen many hundreds, and that's saying something. Winston, I can't tell you how happy I was. Thank you for staying the extra hours and all the work you do, and what a good friend George is. The whole thing couldn't do without you. Oh, by the way, guys, go to the Infirmities page. They have some of the coolest merchandise. Check this out. I got shoes from the Infirmities shoot. They have that skateboard. I've got some of the coolest shirts. He's got great, you can imagine, he's a graphic designer, so you can imagine some of his stuff is super cool. There's some really cool stuff. Check it out at an Infirmities page. I'm sure you can all find that here. You have any savviness on the internet, that shouldn't be no problem. Thank you for being here, Winston. Thank you, Zachary, for all you do. Thank you guys for staying on a long show. This is one of those things where I was hanging out with my friends and we were a little self-indulgent. We hope you stayed through the whole thing. We know you have 1,000 places you could be, 1,000,000 choices you can make, and you choose to hang out with us. We appreciate it. We do this approximately every Thursday, give or take. We'll be back again sometime very soon. And until then, behave and treat each other well. Good night.